So, I'm sure most of you watching this are aware of what this is going to be, but for those of you out there that need to be in the loop, all you really need to know is that a bunch of great YouTube cinema analyst channels came together at the call of Nando V Movies to talk about some of their favorite scenes from the MCU. And since I will never miss a chance to give praise to what I think are unequivocally the best of the MCU films to date, yes, I am writing half of this before watching Endgame tonight, and no, the third one isn't going to be out for like another 4 years, but we're still going to talk about, and more so, one scene in particular. Now, before we get into the semantics of why this scene is a perfect scene in a perfect film, we need to get a little bit of backstory. Oh, oh my. Do you hear that, kids? It's the hype train. Let's take a ride, shall we? Okay, so, the Guardians of the Galaxy. A D-list team of supers that up until 2014 nobody gave a shit about outside of Rocket Raccoon. And I'm pretty sure that's only because he showed up in the odd Marvel video game. A totally nonsensical team of space cops that sometimes fight a weird mirror version of Adam Warlock and maybe the odd gaggle of radical space zealots. And on occasion, Grimace. Yes, I acknowledge that I am dismissing the OG Guardians because outside of, say, Starhawk or Yondu, they aren't super integral to the 2008-inspired Guardians we get. A pretty much forgotten team buried under your X-Men and Avengers and Defenders. Even these guys were more popular at one point, and now nobody seems to give a shit about them. Their show is great, by the way. Please go watch it and support it. It's a lot of fun. A team I knew nothing about until a piece of concept art at the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con Marvel panel sparked my interest. Jump ahead 2 years, then obviously this happened. One of the greatest pieces of cinema ever. Perfect casting, perfect characters, perfect setting, perfect story, perfect comedy, perfect music. Perfect. A movie about a flawed and abused group of individuals that came together to form friendships and learn how to accept help from and share their personal demons with others. Mwah. 10 out of 10. A piece of grade A prime movie steak perfectly crafted to a delicious medium rare, all under the guidance, vision, and care of one guy. Then you give it a few years of becoming a household name, and boom! Here we are, full circle. So, this movie, again, casting, characters and their growth, the study of multiple forms of abuse they all suffered, the music, for very different reasons, the comedy, all perfect stuff. We are a few years out as the audience, and we see that the Guardians have settled into their roles over the past 6 months of galaxy guarding. Yeah, you can Die Hard 1 and 2 these lovely bastards and watch them back to back. Lucky us, hey? But honestly, it's really cool to see the growth of all these characters if you watch these films in tandem, especially Quill, Rocket, and Yondu. Now, I could honestly make this video a couple hours long and talk about how great all the storylines expanded upon each other to further character development and their ties to each other, and how great Kurt Russell is, and this, and all the wonderful meta storytelling about defeating one's ego is, but frankly, you can just watch an already masterfully crafted video by Lindsay Ellis on all that. This video is really great, and it is very personal to Ellis. Please go watch it. As you can already tell, this is my favorite MCU team, and this guy right here is my favorite guy. I love his story and how he actually has to grow in a non-traditional, hyper-masculine, white male leading man way. Again, see Lindsay's video on this topic.
Also watch Full Fat's video, it's great.
2 excellent videos made by excellent YouTubers far more talented or smart than I am. So, the scene I chose is the "You killed my mother" scene from Volume 2. Man, what a scene! The build-up to this scene is great. The whole film has this great sense of unease right from the get-go. These people are friends by this second outing, but they aren't what I would call a family. Not yet, at least. Everything seems unsettling throughout the film despite everyone having their own goals. And the big yet obvious reveal that Ego is the planet-sized bad guy of our sequel is a big red flag that has been waving going, oh yeah, it's time to get our thumbs out of our mayholes and reunite as the Guardians, accompanied later by a second playing of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain. the best song on the Volume 2 soundtrack, which previously in the film had been used to signify their divide. Music is so important to these films, and the storytelling, it's insane. The reveal that Ego is indeed the big bad is great. In this scene, we get a brainwashed Peter Quill being introduced to Ego's master plan of expansion and galactic domination. Peter has been swayed this whole movie by Ego, yes, in both sense. Everything Peter's dad tells him right away is to build him up to be bigger and feel more important than the rest of his crew, all of which outside of Drax have some sort of overtly obvious parental or authority problem. You know, because of abuse. And Ego continues to build up the importance of Quill to his plan by telling him that he was the strongest, only he survived, and that he needs to be a god with ego. Again, in both senses. I also got to give credit to the audio team for the inclusion of the metallic pinging sounds in this scene. Really sets a sharp turn in these transitions where you get a lot of horrific reveals. Really rides the tremor of uneasiness. We get a great reaffirmation from a rightfully scared Mantis that Ego lets nothing stand in his way of his interest on himself.
Her bodies are his children.
Because, you know, it overtly says Ego is a child murderer. He murders kids. He murders his kids. Fuck that guy. He then goes on to say how Yondu, the absolute heart and soul of this sequel, was involved in all this, and that he was told in what I believe to be a flat-out lie that the children never suffered. The revelation that Yondu was also trying to protect Peter from his father after years of regret makes his death near the end harder on Peter and harder on us to watch as the audience. It also helps to absolve him of some of the preconceived notion that Yondu is nothing but this blue space pirate that enjoys hunting down treasure. And we get a glimpse of this in the first film, and it is presented in the jail scene in the sequel as well. The scene flawlessly ties back to our journey for the first Guardians of the Galaxy and reveals that the ultimately perfect father figure that Peter wanted was bad. It also makes the ultimately bad father figure, at least for Peter, the perfect one.
What?
You look like Mary Poppins.
Is he cool?
Hell yeah, he's cool.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
So after this, we get that moment, the one that feels like it solidifies them as a family. It's spoken by Drax, and we know that Drax only speaks literally, so if he, a guy who lost his family and has been searching for a new one without really noticing it, believes these people are his family and says it out loud, I believe him. I don't have a reason not to.
We're family. We leave no one behind.
And pause for comedy stinger.
Except maybe you.
Oh my god.
We immediately after see Ego is feeling unbeatable, and although a brainwashed Peter has been swayed, part of him deep down feels worry. His human half. And yes, my lovely viewer, there is a payoff to this back and forth between humanity versus Ego later on.
You are a god. If you kill me, you'll be just like everybody else.
What's so wrong with that?
You can even hear some unease in Peter's voice when Ego says,
That's the mortal in you, Peter. We are beyond such things.
Yes.
which perfectly lays into the penultimate part of this scene involving Peter's mother. Up until this point in the whole MCU, Peter's mother has been seen doing no wrong. She is almost this angelic figure for Peter, and her untimely death from cancer put her up on a pedestal for Quill. No woman, up until Gamora, is worthy of Peter's true attention. Gamora, in all of her flaws, helps to ground Peter and let him begin to feel open to having a true sense of love and appreciation for another woman, and a flawed, definitely non-angelic one at that. See, Peter, outside of himself, has never had another person that we have seen as the audience love Peter's mother as unconditionally as he does. Peter, up until what happens next, has wholly believed that he has found someone who loves his mother as much as he does. And then...
You said you loved my mother.
And that I did. My river lily, who knew all the words to every song that came over the radio. I returned to Earth to see her 3 times. And I knew if I returned a 4th, I'd never leave. The expansion, reason for my very existence would be over, so I did what I had to do. But it broke my heart to put that tumor in her head.
So are you guys ready to get weirdly personal here? Because we are about to get pretty personal. I'll say if Lindsay can work up the strength and courage to talk about what she talked about in her video, I should too. Okay, so I grew up with 3 pretty big trials in my life up until this point. We all have them. Loss of a loved one, a bad accident, crippling financial situation. We as humans experience trials all the time. And no matter what age you are, a trial still feels big for your knowledge of how the world works at any given time. I can't sit here and say that mine are factually bigger or more important than your trials were. That isn't fair to you and your understanding of how the world works. It's not a competition. I've been given several chances to glimpse the darker sides of life. To be frank, my 3 big things were growing up in a poor, single-parent household, suffering from emotional and mental abuse, and much like Peter's mother, cancer. Yeah, cancer. I honestly think the themes of parents connect and disconnect with relation to their kids and the outcomes of their flaws, suffering, abuse, and how that shapes one as a person, and living with cancer in your life at a very young and key part of your life development-wise really, really speak to me. I won't sit here and cry you a river. I will say for anyone who is going to wonder if I am okay, if I am healthy, I have made enough smart choices for my health that I feel a lot better. I've been cancer-free for a decade this year, actually, and I have completely removed my abuser from my life. You don't come out unscathed, but you learn how to grow and try your hardest to be good by others. It's really some of the best stuff you can do, and I see that in these films, in these flawed characters. They are flawed and shaped by their personal tragedies. So am I. We all are. But they still try their hardest to learn, to love, and help others. I mean, I wouldn't cosplay this guy literally every convention I go to if I didn't feel some sort of deep connection with his character. Gunn is doing something really right and special with his pocket of the MCU. We get this wonderful flow into Peter's reaction after Ego reveals himself to be an absolute shitpile. I gotta give props to them on the choice of lens that they used, and the zoom, and Peter's humanity breaking through his ego trip. It's the perfect tether pull back to reality. Ego rebuttals.
No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
And Star-Lord does what I imagine any of us would do if the person who admitted to loving our most beloved person in our whole life also says that they murdered them would do. We then get Ego, after all that, still in a sick way, trying to appeal to Peter and talking about how great a job he did, trying to be Peter's father for all of 5 minutes.
You killed my mother!
I tried so hard to find the form
That best suited you! And this is the thanks I get?
He takes the form of David Hasselhoff for a callback to a scene earlier where Peter talks about using David Hasselhoff as a coping mechanism for his broken childhood. Ego then gives us a great line which is meant to belittle Peter.
You really need to grow up.
Though that comes to bite Ego in the butt as Peter is on this journey to grow up through these films. He's already doing that. A push made ever more present by Ego continuing to destroy Peter's past by crushing the one tie that he had to his mother, the Walkman. Peter is then rescued by his surrogate father, Yondu. Peter's real father comes to protect him and is soon reunited with the rest of his family. We do get a nice little follow-up during Yondu's funeral where the new member of Peter's extended family and surrogate sort of stepbrother to Quill, Kraglin, gives Peter a Zune, showing him he can still have the connection to music and remember it fondly, a big theme of these 2 films and a lingering reminder of Peter's mother, and accept change and move on and grow, allowing him to be with his new family. It's a great little way of saying that your family doesn't have to be a traditional family, that your family can be a mixed family, and you can have the love that you would have for a parent for someone who might not be biologically related to you.
What's so wrong with that?
This scene really has it all. Many interesting layers to unpack, perfect character moments, a heap of unspoken character growth for multiple characters, some pretty damn stellar comedy, a really wonderful score, stunning visuals, incredible performances, and atmosphere for days. And this is already on top of 2 whole movies that basically live in that stuff all the time. I really love these films. And this scene is like the perfect scene to encapsulate what's so great about these films. I mean, I'm on the side of the fence that thinks what Peter did to Thanos in Infinity War was totally warranted and rationally irrational.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
It's not a super heroic move, but it was his plan, and so ultimately it falls on himself. And we had too many factors of other people mucking things up, you know, like all these scenes.
Open Northwest Section 17.
It's time.
No.
We're in the end game now. You should have gone for the head.
I actually really don't blame any of these people. Maybe a little bit this guy and maybe a little bit this guy, but it was all part of the end game, so, you know, it's, I don't know. Too many cooks in the kitchen, and we gotta remember that this guy was the bad guy of the film.
Grimace?
I will let you know that at the point of writing the second half of this, I have seen Endgame now. It was great. It was really great. A lot of great character watch it, please. If you guys are a fan, there's a lot of payoff for 10 years of films. I am really, really interested to see where these things go from here and at what point Guardians 3 takes place in this universe. I do understand that not everyone will have as much adoration for these films as I do, but I feel like it's a waste when people sleep on these films and say that they look too goofy at times. Like you had to have seen the poster or a trailer at some point if you were going to go out of your way to watch this. If your criticism is that you can't watch them because they're too much for kids or they are too silly, I'm at a loss. You are greatly missing out on really excellent, deeper storytelling that often audiences seem to overlook when it comes to watching superhero films because, again, they're targeted towards kids. I mean, think about how many video essays there are about just these two guys. There's more to it than just punchy, colorful costumes. But thank you for enduring my ramblings. Like I said, please watch the 2 videos that I mentioned earlier. Go check out all the incredibly well-made One Marvelous Scene videos out there. I doubt that Gunn or Pratt or Ellis will ever see this, but yeah, good work, everyone. Again, thanks for sticking through this. Much love to you guys. I'm hitting like the 30-minute mark with my recording here. But yeah, guys, have an excellent day and stay amazing. Cheers.